reading from Memoirs by David Rockefeller. Behold my tie, it is worth more than your children. I came across this quote, and I know I'm late to the game as usual, but it's still sinking in for me. This is from a section called Proud Internationalist, under the heading Populist Paranoia. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents such as my encounter with Castro to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as, quote, internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. That's entirely what's going on for multiple reasons. Let's just read this for a second. This has to do with the $8.5 million that the Rockefeller family paid for the land that would become the United Nations headquarters. And it says the deal was completed on December 11th, 1946, reportedly at Zeckendorf's unofficial offices in the Monte Carlo nightclub. Zeckendorf was the guy who owned the land. When the architect Wallace Harrison, the planning director for the UN building, signed the final papers, he telephoned Nelson Rockefeller at his Rockefeller Center office with the news, and Rockefeller shouted into the phone, "Wally, that calls for a celebration. See if you can't bring back a bottle of champagne." And this was published, I think, in 59. This copy was 61. Rockefeller panel reports where they straight up say that the United Nations plays a vitally important role in the development of a functioning international system, the United Nations that they helped build. And then this whole thing talks about that. And over here it says, the UN stands finally as a symbol of the world order that will one day be built. So that was the whole plan for the United Nations, as a world order. And actually later in this book, they actually call it a new world order. I believe that's on page 72. And it says, America's own interest in the role it is called upon to play in all parts of the world require it to work toward the removal of race and color as significant factors, quote, in a new world order. Yes, I'm posed from the side. I just can't get over that. It's such a smarmy picture. Okay, anyway. Do you like that? I'm not cynical. I've just been taking notes. History book. Anyway. It's pretty accurate. Let's see if I can get back to the page I was on. I think it was 407. If you go back to this chapter, Proud Internationalist here. So he says this. He says, well, if that's a charge, I'm guilty, right? But then you go through and look at some of the other headers in this chapter. You've got the Council on Foreign Relations. You've got Bilderberg. Oh, this is really good. Underneath Bilderberg it says, if the Council on Foreign Relations raises the hackles of conspiracy theorists, the Bilderberg meetings must induce apocalyptic visions of omnipotent international bankers plotting with unscrupulous government officials to impose cunning schemes on an ignorant and unsuspecting world. He says it like it's supposed to be a joke. That's actually what's going on.
Hold on. He founded that group, by the way. Go ahead. Well, is Bilderberg involved in insider trading? Are they involved in scheming? Do they plan things at their meetings? In 1976, Bilderberg faced a scandal that almost resulted in its collapse. In that year, in testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, it was alleged that Prince Bernhard, that's the founder of Bilderberg and the Prince of the Netherlands, Prince Bernhard had approached the Lockheed Corporation with an offer to use his position to influence the Dutch defense procurement policies in return for significant financial consideration. As the year wore on, the evidence against Bernhard accumulated, including indications he had met with intermediaries during Bilderberg events. The 1976 conference was canceled, and it appeared for a time that Bilderberg was finished. But Bilderberg's not involved in plotting anything. They're just there doing stuff. And here they are talking about the reactionaries.
But there's another chapter earlier on called Creating a Global Bank.
Wow.
So he's sitting here making jokes about how he's not in on some, their family isn't in on some big charge for an integrated global political and economic structure, one world if you will.
Days, he bragged about knowing every single leader, every last one in Latin America, which is South America, Central America, all the leaders of all those countries, which, by the way, all underwent coups and revolutions at the hand of the CIA, and you name it. These guys have their thumbs in the pie of everything going on in the 20th century on a global scale, and they're arrogantly bragging about it in the memoirs.